This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Jason Scott Tudor Davenport Smith Blythe Smith Davenport. Today, Joe Biden's record on the economy. Where's it going? Where's it been? How do we get there? What the hell is going on with this podcast? Hey, everybody, it's Jason back with you for Wednesday, which should be a Tuesday audio-only podcast, but unfortunately is a day late and a dollar short. We're very sorry about that. Just had a lot of things going on Tuesday, and the moment I sat down to record this very show, boom, the bottom fell out, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. But we're getting back to it on a Wednesday. Going to release a full show for you tonight. As we usually, or as was now become a custom, Keith does have a show rehearsal tonight. He will be unable to join us, but we wish him all the best. And hopefully he is, I believe he's doing a full sing-through tonight. Oh, so he is singing through all of his nefarious dialogue and lines and probably doing a hell of a job on it and showing off the beard to everybody. Just want to let you know this show is available on iTunes. It's available on Spotify. It's available on iHeartRadio and radio.com, Amazon Music. And we would appreciate if you would subscribe and or stream this show as often as possible. And we'd love for you to tell some friends about what you think of this hour we spend with you and why it helps you or why it doesn't help you. You may remember we began this little show as an homage to talk about COVID. And we do that occasionally still, but it has blossomed into much more fun and just an hour of entertainment and talking with you about things. So what's happening is we want you to subscribe. That's what's happening, and we'd like you to tell a friend. So please do that, and we would sure very much appreciate it. Okay, so you were akin to last week's bracket in which Johnny B. Good did not advance. But a good winner was chosen in our guitar riffs bracket. Now we move forward to kickoff weekend of the NFL. Very exciting, and I want to talk a little bit about this. And even if you're not a sports nut, I hope you'll stay along because this conversation makes sense in a lot of ways. But our bracket this week is on best NFL team nickname. Not the team necessarily, but the offensive or defensive squad nickname. So the Vikings were once called the Purple People Eaters. The Denver Broncos were once called the Orange Crush. The no-name defense was the defense of the 1972 undefeated Miami Dolphins, still the only undefeated team in NFL history. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what is the coolest one of those names. So you can go to, and I've got to put this back up on the board, challenge, CHALLONGE.com, and search for NFL nicknames, and ours will come up. Click that and make a prediction. We'll also send out the link again later this evening so you can make sure to tell a friend and get them to do some predicting along. It's also the time of year when the final fantasy football teams are getting picked. In fact, I'm recording this about an hour or so before the my final fantasy football league will conduct its draft. It's actually a league that I decided to create because I wanted to create a local league with some social to it. We've got 8 or 7, I'm the 8th, 8 great folks in it who seem very excited to play, and some new folks, including my friend Lincoln, who has a great podcast, 2 Bourbons, 2 Guys, 2 Bourbons, or 1 Bourbon, 2 Guys, or something like that. I got to get the name right, Lincoln. I'm so sorry. Anyway, he is doing that up at, he does a great podcast, but he's also in the league. He's never played before, but he decided to play along. And I'm still envious that he's a former Marvel Comics writer. So awesome. And he's also the guy, if you don't know Lincoln, he was the drill sergeant that made Baby Shark famous. So he's a good friend of mine. But anyway, so that's all wrapping up. But football season is back. And I have a lot of feelings about this because it's one of those things that gets us back to where we were. And I know that other sports have been playing. I know basketball's been playing. I know baseball's been playing. But football is one of those things that I grew up with. My parents, my mother specifically, loved football season. She died about a year ago. And so I grew up watching football in my house. We'd go to their friends' homes on weekends where they'd barbecue, get stoned, and they'd watch the Chargers lose. So it was a big, big part of my life. My friends in high school were football players, although I was kind of as my friend Michael likes to say, a hybrid. I liked football, but I also liked drama, and I liked science, and I was all over the place. But football has been a big, big part of all of this since the beginning. So it's important that this sort of is happening. And it's happening at the usual time, and it's sort of even happening in the usual way, although there won't be as many people in the stands as there were, as there should be. There will be some in some stands, and I think that's interesting. I think some stadiums plan to fill between like 15 or 20% capacity, but there will be people in the stands, so that's an interesting point. And there will be games on. There's a game, in fact, on. Well, for us, it's 8:30 Thursday for East Coast folks, but it's 2:20 in the morning. I'm not staying up for that, but it's so this is not a return to normal. I don't want to use that. I don't know that I don't like the word normal anyway, but it's getting back to routine, the routine that many of us had prior to this. As the Jason season, as we're into the third month of the Jason season. If you don't know what the Jason season is, July, August, September, October, November. So we're in month 3 of the very festive Jason season, and we're getting NFL football. And that's just a big way to say that perhaps we're getting, we're starting to figure out how to abate this virus, how to keep it at bay. And yes, there are still tremendous numbers of problems, and people are still getting sick, and we're still not doing the best we can by wearing masks and things. But there's also news that a vaccine is on the horizon in England, even in Germany. And so there's all sorts of hope on the horizon. And there's a lot of other things happening, too, that's very hopeful. So this means a lot that this is happening, that I'm drafting in my fantasy football leagues. And I think it means a lot. I've always wondered, and I think we talked a little bit about this in the last live show, but what is your sort of touch point thing that means we have gotten back to routine or normal? What is it for you? I know for a lot of folks, maybe it's just going to a movie. My wife would love to go and sit in a movie theater without feeling like she was going to be infected by someone with COVID-19. There's some great movies coming out, and I'll talk about a couple here in a second. But so for some, it's going to the movies. For some, it's just being next to people on the beach or something. Being that social presence. That being next to humanity. So there's a lot to like about football returning. A lot of the routine and the things that are happening. It means a lot to me. I know it would mean a lot to my mom where she's still here. I know it means a lot to a lot of other people. And if you're even not a sports fan, there's got to be that one thing on the horizon that means a lot to you that you can sort of point to and say, okay, now we're getting back to where we should be. And that might be something as small as even, just taking a trip or something like that, having your parents come visit you or going home for Christmas or something like that. I don't know. But whatever COVID is keeping from you and needs to give back, this is one of those things for me. So I'm excited about football season starting, excited to watch games on Sunday, and all sorts of excitement. On a more serious note, this is Suicide Prevention Month. It starts in September. The lead that we usually like to go with here is that 1 in 20 veterans commit suicide, 20 a day. I always, for some reason, I've been screwing that up lately. 20 a day was 22. That number's to 20, but it's still 20 a day. And there's a lot of factors for that. I remember when I was working for the VA, I talked about this as very, very often, incessantly almost, with our lead suicide prevention psychologist and psychiatrist. And I wanted to know what that number 20 was. And I think it's surprising when you learn that a lot of the veterans that are committing suicide are older veterans who've either run out of money, they've gotten divorced and they don't know where they are, Korean veterans, Vietnam veterans, those kinds of folks who feel like they've reached the end of their rope in life and that's the way they have to go. And it's not to say there aren't veterans who aren't committing suicide, who are coming back from Afghanistan and elsewhere. But the majority at the time, this is only about, 2 years ago when I asked the question, were older veterans who had sort of reached the end of their rope, so to speak, or what they felt was the end of their rope and couldn't hang on anymore. This is a tremendous time. And usually on Facebook, I put a paragraph or two that basically says, look, if you need help, reach out to me. Call me. In fact, I'm going to give you my phone number right now. It's 619-550-2275. It's a stateside number, but it rings on my phone here in Europe. If you need to talk, tell me. If you need to want to talk over text, then hit me up through Facebook Messenger. But no matter what, always understand there are people who support and love and care for you, even when you don't think there are, even when you think you're at the sort of the last wit's end of whatever's happening. No matter how bad you think it is, someone is there to care for you. And if that person needs to be me, that person will be me. So I'll say my phone number again, 619-550-2275. Call that number. I will talk and we'll work through it. But you always have someone to talk to. And please keep that in mind with others. Please keep that in mind when you're looking at folks at work. You know, if you start to see the signs and symptoms, just ask them directly. Are you thinking about harming yourself? And then have that conversation. That's what this month is about. It's a month of recognition, but you can do that all year long, and I advocate that for you. So don't forget that, okay? It's really, really important. All right, getting back upbeat. Let's talk about, I want to call this segment, and I'm sure Keith would agree, let's call this segment Old People Things. I think I'm old enough now where I can talk about like old people things. And so do you ever have a day where you're just tired? I mean, just like, you just can't shake it. You're just tired. You know, you woke up tired, you get to work, you're tired. You get these little bubs throughout the day, and sometimes you could summon enough energy to be like, hey, you, and do all that. But you just had it. Maybe you haven't had enough sleep. Maybe you ate too much sugar, whatever it is. But it's just that month. Well, today was my day. I was freaking tired, and I could not shake it. And even as I'm doing this podcast, I'm still feeling like bleh, trying to shake it off, trying to just hoping to hit the sack early tonight, get in about 8 hours of sleep, try again tomorrow. I'm starting in a brand new job. It's kind of a developmental position for about 120 days next week. So I need to muster up that energy and be the best that I can. And this is not a great day to start that over. So in any case, it's been a difficult, trying day, just sort of zombieing around. And I'm pretty sure I just haven't been eating well and not sleep well. So old people things, you know, it's like when you sleep and you hurt yourself. You wake up and you go, what the fuck did I do to my neck? Oh, I slept on it wrong. Whereas when you're 22, you're like, it doesn't matter. But when you're like, hit your late 30s, 40s, 50s, man, you can injure yourself in your sleep. That's just a whole different deal. This show is a JK with your pal Jason. Keith is at a rehearsal and unable to make this audio program. We will get back with him when we figure out what we're doing with the live show this coming weekend. I know he and I are playing golf, and we've got another hangout to do there. So hopefully we'll try to squeeze in a live show there to get the bracket done at the very least. You know, speaking of fantasy football, I remember I've played fantasy football since at least, I'm trying to think, 1995, 94, 95. That's the era when you would still have to get the scores out of the newspaper or off the TV, and sometimes they'd be corrected, and you scored it all by hand, and you had live drafts in your house, and it was a big social occasion, and they took 4 hours. And now it's so much different. You go online. There's so much analytics and stats. It's already just built in. You barely even have to do any research anymore. ESPN or Yahoo or somebody will make that pick for you, and boom, you have a pretty decent team to compete against other teams. But in the early days, even when ESPN wasn't accepting it, when the analysts and the announcers and everybody else were going, fantasy football is for dicks, you know, or something like that, they didn't take to it very well. And then there was a flip when they realized they could make a ton of money off of it, and that was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, when they finally started paying attention. And you got the Matthew Berrys of the world, and you got the Adam Schefters of the world, who, you know, will report right up to game time to give you injury status so you know whether to play a guy or not. Strategies, you know, different, all that. That's when it became real. But before that, people just gave it so much shit. And it's funny too, because like, isn't sort of fantasy football the D&D of jocks, right? Isn't that what we do? I mean, I play D&D too, but isn't it kind of like a D&D for sports fans? I mean, I'm totally cool with that. But these real hardcore people would make fun of it, and it's like, okay, well, what do you expect? But in any case, it's interesting to have watched the transformation between fantasy football then and now, and it's so automated, and there's big money on it now. ESPN has leagues, DraftKings, and what's the other one? DraftKings and Sports something. The other two kind of legal sorts of gambling sites, they make a lot of money with their offerings, and it's crazy, but it's the D&D of jocks. It's a lot of fun. So in any case, so it's been a busy week. We have both been hustling around, doing a lot. As far as the COVID update goes, not too much new to report here. Not a lot of the measures have changed. There are still a lot of hot spots in Europe, and there's still a lot of COVID blossoming, and everyone is still being very cautious with masks. So not a lot of change from the last show, so I don't want to go too deep into that other than to say it's still here. Got to wear your mask, got to take caution, got to wash your hands, and you got to do all that stuff. So keep that in mind as you continue your COVID journey wherever you may be. All right, short show, but that is going to do it. We wanted to get something out there in the ether and get you involved. Don't forget, fill out your predictions in the bracket. I'll post those to the Facebook page and on my personal page today. We want to try to get at least 10 or 15 predictions so we can give away a cool T-shirt. Daniel Nathaniel should be getting his shirt. Oh, I know what I forgot. I can't leave yet. Movie trailers. I don't want to overhype the bracket yet. 2 fantastic movie trailers this week. The first one that I saw was No Time to Die, the sort of complete Bond trailer, and that looks fantastic. I don't know what's going to happen to Daniel Craig as Bond, but I can say that film now, with the trailer they've put together, looks fantastic. I don't know about Rami Malek yet. We'll see what we see, if he's in more of the role of the more stoic James Bond villains or the more ridiculous James Bond villains, a la Donald Pleasance as Blofeld, that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see, but the gags and the run-up to it look fantastic. I think I said on the show before, I think James Bond was my first love from The Spy Who Loved Me with Barbara Bach and Roger Moore, and I've been a Bond fan ever since. I own all the Bond on DVD. A lot of my writing, a lot of my sci-fi, a lot of stuff that I build, it's definitely got a James Bond influence. There's no joke. So I'm excited to see this film. It'll just be interesting to see when we can get to a theater to actually watch it. And then the second trailer that I came across right before I started talking with you is the Dune trailer with, what's his name? Timothy, I can't remember his last name, Malavachant or something, Armand Blanc or blah, 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 Blanc, or I don't remember, but he's young and he looks like a young Paul Atreides, whereas Kyle MacLachlan, who did it in the David Lynch film, did look like a young, but he looked more like a 20-something, and I believe Paul Atreides in the Dune films is supposed to be about 50, or the Dune books rather, is supposed to be about 15. So he definitely looks the part. The cinematography is, of course, brilliant. It looks exactly like a Denis Villeneuve film. I don't know how far they're supposed to get into the book. I know that they're only supposed to go maybe about halfway or 3/4 of the way, and then they were going to build on to that. But it has a lot of the same touch points as the first Dune film, the David Lynch. I heard a lot of the same lines, some of the same cues. I see Kate Blanchett appears to be playing God, I'm tired. My memory's losing it. The Reverend Mother. That she looks great doing that. Oscar Isaac is in there as Duke Atreides, Leto. God, I am really tired. As Leto, and then some of the other things. The only one I didn't get a clear read on was Harkonnen. And thanks to Daniel Nathaniel, he was the first one to post it, and then I went ahead and posted it on my Jason Tudor author page. So a couple of movies really looking forward to. Top Gun, of course, pushed back to December. I'm excited for those, but it's just going to be filled with FA-18s. That's all the Navy flies. So, I mean, it's interesting. I'm wondering, what's next for Tom Cruise after this. interesting to see where he'll go after Top Gun. I guess it'll be more Mission Impossible, but it's just an interesting time for movies, interesting time for movie stars, and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, the Dune trailer looks fantastic, looks promising. Both trailers look promising. Hoping that we can get back to theaters to be able to watch those soon. So if you can find the trailers, go check those out. They look great. So that's it. That's the show. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, listen to us on iTunes. If you go to iTunes, please rate it with the stars and give us a review. That's very helpful for the algorithm to help us bubble up to the top. Also on Spotify, do what you can do there for us, and any of the other platforms that you're used to, Amazon Music. I think Google Play is now becoming YouTube Music, so you'll have to do that there. You can also catch a video. The video replays are found on our Facebook pages and on YouTube. So if you just want to listen to it via YouTube at work or something, you can do that there. Thank you for joining us. This has been NPR's All Things Considered. I'm Jason Scott, Tudor, Davenport, Thomas, Michelson,